Parents refused to babysit with my son while I was away on a business trip. It's not our problem, take him away, they said. I told them that I refused to pay their bills, and then it all started 2 weeks ago when I asked my parents to watch my 6-year-old son Liam while I was away on a critical business trip. Normally, I wouldn't impose on them for long-term favors, but I had no other choice. They hesitated as if I were asking for an impossible miracle, yet eventually they agreed, even though I could sense their reluctance. After all, they're his grandparents, so how hard could it be? The first few days went by normally. Every night, Liam would call to say that Grandma made him eat way too many carrots or that Grandpa dozed off during his favorite TV show. These little quirks seemed harmless at first. But on the third day, Liam's tone shifted. His voice sounded frustrated and even a bit sad. He wanted to play and have fun, yet his grandparents kept insisting they were too tired. It was confusing for a child who just didn't understand why the people he loved so much were suddenly cold. Thinking it might have been a one-off bad day, I promised him I'd check in. When I called my mom, I expected the usual cheerful complaint about how energetic Liam was. Instead, she said flatly, "We're tired of babysitting. He's your kid, not ours. Figure it out." I tried to remain calm and reminded her of the 2-week agreement, but she wasn't having it. "We're old, Justin. We don't need this stress. We're taking him to your sister Emma's today." I was stunned. Emma hadn't even been consulted beforehand. It was like they had just dropped Liam on her doorstep without warning. Anger simmered within me. Yet I knew arguing wouldn't change anything. I simply replied, "Fine, take him," and hung up. That call made me realize how unbalanced our relationship had become. I had always been the one to step up for them, paying bills, covering the garage rent, and doing anything they needed without hesitation. But when I needed a favor that really mattered, suddenly it was too much. I wasn't about to let that slide again. That very night, I sent them a terse text. "I'm done paying your bills. $500 a month and the garage rent included. Don't expect anything else from me." Within minutes, my phone lit up with 18 missed calls and texts. "Pick up, Justin. What's going on? We don't understand, everything was fine. Call us," they pleaded. For the next few days, I ignored every call and message. I focused on work and on making sure Liam was happy with Emma, who kindly agreed to look after him until I returned. Daily check-ins with her became my only comfort as my parents spiraled into confusion and guilt-tripping over my decision. Then the next day, I woke up to more missed calls and texts. I scrolled through them half-heartedly until one message jumped out. "Justin, if you don't answer, we're going to have to do something drastic. We need to talk." Something drastic? I muttered, rolling my eyes. I wasn't in the mood for their usual manipulations. Instead of calling back, I phoned Emma to see how Liam was doing. "He's fine," she reassured me. "He was busy building a fort in the living room when I left for work. But listen, Mom and Dad showed up unannounced this morning." "What? Why?" I asked, my heart beginning to race. They didn't offer an explanation, just a barrage of questions like, "What's wrong with you?" My dad even acted as if they were the wronged party, the victims of some huge misunderstanding. Typical of them. Emma then added they brought along boxes, tools, like they planned on staying for a while. Mom casually mentioned needing space to figure things out. I couldn't believe it. "You're kidding me. They're moving in with you." Emma burst out laughing. "Oh hell no," I replied firmly, "they're not staying here." Although they got upset, they eventually left. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, and that their antics were just beginning. Later that afternoon, my phone rang from an unknown number. It turned out to be a lawyer's office. "Mr. Justin Harrison?" a calm voice inquired. "I'm calling on behalf of your parents regarding a financial arrangement. They claim to be financially dependent on you and wish to negotiate terms." I nearly laughed out loud. My own parents had hired a lawyer to force me to keep paying their bills? There was a pause before the lawyer continued. "I suggest you discuss this directly with them." I hung up, my mind reeling. Was it really legal action over me not babysitting their feelings anymore? Deciding I had enough, I called my dad to confront him. "I just got a call from a lawyer. Can you explain?" His tone was annoyingly casual, as if nothing were wrong. "We just thought maybe a professional talk would make you see reason. You've always helped us, so why stop now?" he said. "Unreasonable." I snapped back. This is blackmail. Refusing to watch your grandson for 2 weeks isn't a crime. We're not being blackmailed. You're just upset because you can't handle a little inconvenience. He defended himself, insisting that I'd been supporting them for years and that they depended on that. I simply replied, I'm done. I'm not paying for anything else. You're my parents, not my responsibility, and hung up. That evening, Emma called again, her tone more amused than angry. You won't believe this. Mom and Dad showed up at my place with lawn chairs on the porch, refusing to leave until you called them back. I tried to tell them to go back to their apartment, but they're stubborn as ever. Despite my annoyance, I couldn't help but be a bit impressed by their determination. Wow, they're really pulling out all the stops, Emma said. It gets better, she continued. I told them you'd call once they calmed down, and when they finally did, they threatened to cut me out of the will. We laughed at the absurdity, though inside I was exhausted by their theatrics. Determined not to be dragged any further into their drama, Emma and I decided to flip the script. If they want to play games, we'll play right back, we agreed. What they didn't know was that we were about to give them a taste of their own medicine. 10 days later, I went straight to Emma's to pick up Liam. The moment I walked through the door, his face lit up as he jumped into my arms. Emma caught me up on the past few days. More bizarre visits, relentless guilt trips, and dramatic proclamations about broken family bonds. Typical, they're desperate, she remarked as we sat in her kitchen. They even tried playing the sympathy card, talking about failing health. Funny how your health only seems to decline when your wallet's empty, I joked. Emma and I exchanged a knowing look. She'd had her fair share of battles with them too. Maybe because she wasn't financially supporting them like I was, they never took her seriously. But now that their cash flow had dried up, they were grasping for any leverage they could get. After spending some time with Emma, I took Liam back home, wanting him to feel secure amid the chaos. He seemed okay on the surface, but I could sense the tension. Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at us? He asked quietly from the back seat. I met his eyes in the rearview mirror. They're just upset because I made a decision they don't like, but don't worry. It's not your fault, I assured him, though I knew he'd still be thinking about it. The very next morning, the phone calls resumed. I tried ignoring them, but after the 6th ring, I finally answered. Justin, my mother's voice began, overly sweet. We just want to talk. You can't keep shutting us out. What's there to talk about? I replied flatly. You made your decisions and I made mine. I'm done paying your bills, end of story. Don't be like that, she pleaded. You're putting us in a tough spot. We've been struggling since you cut us off. And your father is even having chest pains from the stress. Chest pains? I asked skeptically. Do you even know what causes chest pains? It sounds like a guilt trip when you're perfectly healthy, Justin. Her tone dropped its sweetness as she snapped. This isn't a joke. We raised you, and this is how you repay us. I fired back, you raised me. Emma and I practically raised ourselves. You only show up when you need something, and now that I'm not your bank, suddenly I'm the bad guy. We're a family, Justin. Families support one another, she countered. Exactly. And what was your support when I needed you to look after Liam? You couldn't handle just 3 days of babysitting without throwing a tantrum and dumping him on Emma. After a long silence, she finally said, You're being unfair. We're old, we have our limits, and so do I. I'm not going to argue anymore. We're done, I stated, hanging up and turning off my phone. Over the next few days, they tried every trick in the book. Calling Emma to complain, leaving messages about ungrateful children, even sending a letter warning they'd never forgive me if I didn't change my mind. Emma and I laughed it off, knowing full well they wouldn't quit easily. Sure enough, a few days later they pulled one last stunt. They showed up at my house unannounced. I opened the door to find them both looking tired and worn out. We just want to talk, my dad said softly. Sighing, I let them in even though I wasn't up for another guilt session. They sat on the couch, fidgeting like kids caught misbehaving. My mom began tentatively, We've been thinking. And I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, wondering if maybe, just maybe, we had been a little harsh. And that's where our family saga stands. Messy, dramatic, and a far cry from the loving support I once expected. We've been under a lot of stress, Justin, she began, her tone strained but pleading. But we don't want to fight anymore. Let's work something out, maybe we can compromise. Compromise? I echoed, raising an eyebrow. You mean you want me to start paying your bills again? No, she quickly protested. Just maybe help out with a few things here and there. We're really not asking for much. I stood there watching her squirm. I could see right through the act. They were trying to sugarcoat their real intentions, hoping I'd cave in. But I wasn't about to fall for it. I'll think about it, I finally replied, even though I had zero plans of giving them a dime. They left shortly after, clearly upset that they hadn't gotten their way. Later that night, Emma called and burst out laughing when I recounted the conversation. They really think they can sweet-talk you into paying again, she said. They're unbelievable. Yeah, well, I shot back firmly. They're about to learn the hard way that I'm done being their ATM. This time I was standing my ground. A few days later, my mom called once more, her voice softer, almost regretful. Justin, we've been doing a lot of thinking. We want to apologize truly this time. We were stubborn, and we're sorry for how we treated you and Liam. I paused, wondering if this was yet another trick. We're inviting you and Emma over for dinner, she continued. Just the four of us, no pressure, no arguments. We just want to try to work things out. I hesitated but decided that maybe, just maybe, they had finally come to their senses. Besides, it couldn't hurt to give them one last chance. Emma was skeptical when I told her, but she agreed to come along, on the condition that if they pulled any more stunts, that would be it for us. That evening we arrived at their place. The aroma of baked chicken and mashed potatoes filled the house. A picture-perfect family dinner, if only for a moment. With Liam staying at a friend's place, it was just the adults. My mom led us to the dining table, her smile feeling a bit too practiced. We're so glad you both came, she said, placing a plate in front of me. My dad added, it's been too long since we've had a nice family dinner like this. I noticed Emma shooting my mom a skeptical look, not buying the act at all, but we went along with the small talk about work, school, and other trivial topics. Then halfway through dinner, my dad cleared his throat and said, Justin, we've been having some serious financial troubles lately. Things are really tight, and it's been hard to keep up with expenses since you stopped helping out. I put down my fork, watching my appetite vanish. Emma shot me a look that said, here we go again. My mom quickly interjected, we know we haven't handled things well in the past, but maybe we can find some middle ground. We're not asking for a lot, maybe just enough to help us get back on our feet. Perhaps you could even pay the garage rent again. I took a deep breath and fought to remain calm. Are you serious? You invited us over just to ask for money again? No, my mom insisted, waving her hands in exasperation. We also wanted to apologize, but we really need help, Justin. You know how hard this has been for us. Before I could reply, Emma snapped, oh, come on. You're not sorry, you just want to guilt us into paying your bills again. That's exactly why we never trusted you in the first place. My dad tried to interject, you don't understand, Emma. Justin has always been the responsible one in this family. He knows how to keep things running smoothly. Emma leaned forward, her voice cutting sharp. Don't you dare use that against me. Just because Justin helped you all these years doesn't mean you can treat him like your personal bank. We're not kids anymore, and you can't manipulate us like that. Do you think you're better than us now? My mom retorted, we sacrificed so much for you both, and now you're turning your back on us. I stood up and shook my head. That's exactly why I'm done. You see us as nothing more than your meal ticket. We came here thinking you wanted to fix things, but all you care about is money. Justin, wait, my dad started, but I cut him off. No, we're done here. Emma also stood, grabbing her coat. You can keep pretending to be the victims, but we're not falling for it anymore. We both headed for the door, and I slammed it behind us as we walked to the car. Emma let out a frustrated laugh. Unbelievable, they really thought we'd just give in. They always do. But not this time, I replied. For the first time in a long while, I felt like we were finally in control. They could try all the manipulation they wanted, but we weren't going to let them win. For a while after that dinner, things were oddly quiet. I hoped my parents had finally gotten the message, but of course that turned out to be too good to be true. About a week later, I received a long rambling message from my mom, full of passive-aggressive lines like, since you and Emma don't value family anymore, we have no choice but to make some hard decisions. She went on to say they were considering cutting us both out of the will, making it clear that if we didn't come to our senses, we'd inherit nothing when they were gone. I couldn't help but laugh. It was so typical of them to think money would make us crawl back. I called Emma and she cracked up too. Wait, she said between laughs. You mean the same will probably includes her collection of old furniture and Dad's busted tools? Oh no, what will we ever do without those riches? I joked. Exactly, she replied. It's just more manipulation. They're running out of ways to control us. Let them write us out. It wasn't long before we both stopped responding to their threats. For weeks, they kept reaching out with texts like, "It's not too late to make things right, family is forever." But when they realized we weren't biting, the messages finally stopped. No more calls, no more texts. At first, the silence felt strange, but soon it became a relief. I had spent so much of my life tied to their expectations, constantly sacrificing my own needs to keep them happy. Now, for the first time, I was free to live on my own terms. Things started looking up, work was going well, Liam seemed happier, and Emma and I grew closer than ever, supporting each other without the burden of our parents looming over us. Then, something unexpected happened. I met someone. Tessa. She was smart, down to earth, and kind in a way that felt truly refreshing after all the chaos. We met at a mutual friend's party, and it didn't take long for us to hit it off. The best part? Liam adored her. Initially, he was nervous about me dating again, but Tessa quickly put him at ease. She played board games with him, helped him with homework, and even took him on little adventures to the park. It wasn't long before he started calling her his favorite adult friend. One night after dinner, Liam asked me, "Do you think Tessa could be my new mom someday?" At first, I was at a loss for words. His biological mother had left our lives years ago. She'd built a new life and barely kept in touch. I had tried my best to fill that void, but I knew he longed for something more. "I don't know, buddy," I said gently, "but I think Tessa really cares about you. Let's just see what happens." Liam nodded, smiling as if that was enough for now. Over time, Tessa and I grew closer, and I began to see a future with her. Life wasn't perfect, there were still challenges, but I finally felt like things were moving forward in a healthy way. Liam had stability, Emma had her freedom, and I had peace of mind. As for my parents, well, they stayed calm. They had made their choice, and so had I. I no longer needed their approval or their inheritance. I had built my own family, and that was more than enough. And that's how my story ends. No more drama, just a clean break and a fresh start.